I've just watched the most wholesome half hour of TV I've watched in a long time. Are you aware of the streaming service called Dropout?
Yeah, Conover. Adam Conover?
It's Sam Reich now who runs it. Yeah, I don't know, because it came out of College Humor. Because there was a whole thing, and I think Sam Reich fella figured out a way, because like it was going bust, and he like resurrected it or something. Anyway,
I used to watch a lot of College Humor.
Yeah, it's I've been aware of it as a thing.
Yeah,
there's a show called Game Changer, which I've become aware of through TikTok, and I think became big through TikTok because of the way that the games slice up quite nicely. They make for TikToks very easily.
Sure.
Because I was watching so many of those, and the spin-off show called Make Some Noise, that I ended up signing up for Dropout, and I've been watching Dimension 20, which are these like sometimes 2 hour, sometimes 2.5 hour long episodes of Dungeons and Dragons that are played by comics, but comics who take D&D serious. Like they're not D&D players naturally, but they're not making fun of it. Like it's kind of cool that way. I just watched an episode of Game Changer. Spoiler, but it's season 4, and it was the episode was called Don't Cry, because every week the game changes, and this one it was like they start off by chopping onions. And okay, don't, if you cry, you get a point taken away from you. I think you start with 10. If you cry, you get a point taken away. And then it goes to watch the first 4 minutes of Up. And then it's like pictures of you as kids. And then it's letters from family.
Oh, shit.
And this writer-performer, Jess, is in the middle. And she reads a letter from her mum. And then one of the other performers reads a letter, and you're assuming it's going to be to her, but it's to Jess from her. So we've got Reka on the right reading a letter to Jess, and then she cries, and that's another point taken away. And then the guy to the left, Luke, reads a letter written for Jess, and you start to realize this. Basically, the whole episode is for her.
Oh, wow.
They then get members of her friends and family who big video compilation of all recorded video messages to say how much they love her and how brilliant she is and what a great writer she is. They brought out other Game Changer contestants to talk about and read their own letters, and they're crying and she's crying. Her fiance comes out because they tried to get married in 2020 but couldn't due to the pandemic. Then she had a back injury, couldn't walk for months.
Oh, shit.
And so you realize like the whole episode is basically a tribute to her just because she's had a hard year. And it's just like, they just thought it would be like a nice thing to do. And they do a like pretend wedding with a drag queen, and he marries them both. And it's, it was just, that's
beautiful.
It,
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I'm talking about.
I love a wholesome surprise prank kind of thing on a show. Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
So lovely.
That is lovely.
So speaking of wholesome surprise pranks.
Oh, the birthday present. Yeah, dude. Oh my God, that went great. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I've been working on this blog for, I figured out it was 2.5 years.
Christ.
Was it 4 years ago? That's what Margaret mentioned. It was 4 years ago. I don't know that it was that long ago, but a while ago, she and I gave up social media. And we're very happily living without the feed and the ads and random weird political stances coming at you. What I noticed pretty immediately is that we no longer had this timeline of our life and our events and a spot that we could point to and share with people, or just look back on ourselves of times we were happy when we went out and did something. And we've got, the Photos app and stuff, makes videos and pops up memories and stuff. And that's great. But there's no context. There's no written word with it. There's no interaction. And so, so a while back I had this idea, a blog, that was the original. Like that's not the original, of course. That's still relatively new in the terms of history.
That's how we used to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of how we used to do it. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, well, if I did a blog, there'd be no ads, there'd be no other people's opinions and shit. There'd be no toxicity, and I could have complete control over how it looks and it's formatted and other things. And so I started writing. Well, I started multiple different blogs on different websites, trying to find the right fit. I didn't really have much of a budget for it, so I was checking out all the free places, and then they want to put ads on it. So I'm like, well, that defeats the purpose a little bit. And so eventually I made an unlinked page on my Squarespace site for my business, just to have the blog be somewhere. And it was great because Squarespace would allow me to set the date and backdate it to whenever I wanted to, so I could have it come out like the day it was posted as the day of the event, which I thought was really fun to do. So it actually seems like a timeline and not just like a whole bunch of August 20th.
Yes.
So I wrote a whole bunch, and I still have a bunch in my notes app. Don't have them all posted. I've posted maybe like a quarter of the ones I've written and stuff. And there's probably like 25, 30 posts up there now. And I made an archive page, which I was really happy with, because it had at the top, there's like special events. So I have like our wedding linked and our summer trip. And then below that, I have it just like by date. You can click through and see all the events easily. And then below that, I have all the tags. And so if you just want to see when we did water sports or when we went to the mountain or other things like that, you can go through all that. And then I have an adorable URL that I really love. That's the only part that I paid for. and we're keeping it quiet for now. We don't know exactly what we want to do with it, but Margaret and I are going to keep working on it. And we think that we want to keep it going. So I gave it to her on her birthday, and oof, one of the first things that she said to me is like, I don't know how you're ever going to top this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, me neither, but I'll try. I will try. And then actually later that day, I thought of an excellent idea that's going to take multiple years to do. I'm like, okay, I know my next challenge. It's going to be a minute. There's going to be, just nice little gifts for a little while, but then I'm going to work on this big thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, we had an excellent time. Margaret pulled a 3-day birthday weekend, and we did a bunch of different things, which was really fun. We went stand-up paddleboarding on the Tualatin River. We had a backyard cookout with her family, which was really nice. Her actual birthday, we went to St. John's and did a big walk around there, got some coffee. She just happened to look up a walking tour, and so we did this big 3-mile walk within the neighborhood, and it was really great. We were like looking at all the different houses and stuff and pointing out what we liked and didn't like, and we're like, oh, they're a hoarder, kind of tiptoe around that place and looking at the dogs and stuff, and it was just great. That was on Monday. Oh, we went to Bridal Veil. Okay. Oh, yeah. And I actually already posted this to the blog. We took a drive to north. This is actually really great. We went to the Gorge, northeast of Portland. It's like this kind of massive landscape area where they just call it the Gorge, which is short for gorgeous, I think. I don't know. And it is very pretty.
Is it not an actual gorge?
Well, okay, so that's the thing. It probably is. I don't know what a gorge is.
Ah, okay. I think a gorge is a small canyon.
Uh-huh. Then yes, it is that.
Yes, because I've been to a gorge, I think.
Yeah, but the thing, okay, so
yep.
when I go to my favorite music event, it's at the Gorge Amphitheater.
Yes.
Which is 5.5 hours away. And so you're driving, and it's also called, it's called the Gorge, and then where we were down by Portland is also called the Gorge. And it's like, is the Gorge 5.5 hours long? Is that the whole thing? Is that all the Gorge? Like what?
It could be. So the definition here, because part of my job on this podcast is to read things from Google.
Perfect.
A gorge, a noun, a narrow valley between hills or mountains, typically with steep rocky walls and a stream running through it.
Okay, so yes, it is a gorge. Okay, so so when I drive 5.5 hours, I drive away from the gorge and then come back to it. That seems like what's happening there, because I'm still on the Columbia River. We went to the gorge. We went to the bottom, the Portland accessible area of the gorge, and we went to Bridal Veil Falls, which is just a really short, like third of a mile hike. And it was where Margaret and I went on our first hike, which was 5 years ago. And that was the first post in the blog post. And so after we went, we took another selfie down there, and I updated that blog post right before I gave it to her the next morning with that extra photo and a little description of what we'd done. And that was really great. And then we went to Sugar Pine Drive-In twice because it was
that
so
sounds
good.
Like a 1960s Martha Reeves and the Vandellas Motown song. Or a Tina Turner, like we're going to, what was it? The Pine?
Sugar Pine
Drive-In. Yeah.
Sugar Pine
We're going
Drive-In.
to the Sugar Pine Drive-In. Shoot. Like it's,
doop.
And there's a list like that song, Saturday Night at the Movies. It's just like a litany of all the things that are available at the drive-through, at the drive-in. I love it.
Yeah.
Sugar Pine Drive-In.
I got pork sliders with macaroni salad and a grilled cheese that was pressed in a waffle iron. With a tomato soup. Yeah, it was fucking good. It was fucking good.
Cheese sandwich, tomato soup, cheese sandwich. What a holy combination. Just the most comforting food.
Yes. Yeah, it was incredible. They have special ice cream sundaes. I think it was called Smokey and the Bear. Chocolate soft serve with Teddy Grahams. Do you know Teddy Grahams?
No.
They're little graham crackers in the shapes of bears.
Of little teddies.
I think like a blueberry compote, like little drizzle with marshmallow cream topping that they took a kitchen torch to and singed it.
Yes, bit of a brulee.
Yeah. So it was like a s'mores. And then we got another sundae because when in Rome, it also had like a blueberry compote, blondie bites. So like a brownie, but not chocolate.
Yeah.
Honeycomb, crunchy crystal things.
I love this.
Oh. So yeah, had an excellent Margaret's birthday.
Well, happy Margaret's birthday to us all, to all who celebrate.
To all. I'm on performance enhancing drugs right now. Decaf coffee.
It's decaf coffee.
Decaf coffee. Oh, I'm jittery already.
It's nice. Yeah. Woo. Oy.
How's your week? What'd you do? What did you get up to?
Accepted that I'm probably in a period of depression. Kind of just figuring out how to be a good friend to myself right now. So,
I like it. Well, I don't like the depression. Figuring it, but I like the second part. Second clause.
The startings of things over the last few weeks has been a means of escape. Sort of needing to escape from something. And I think part of that being still needing to build a business that is stable.
Yeah.
And also running the business and also. Lots of those things have been me, whether it was Narrow, whether it was the Birmingham podcast, whether it was talking about agency stuff last week. It's all been, how can I not be present with what is difficult right now?
Yeah.
And right now there's a little bit of work coming up, which is good. And I've just delivered some work, which was really well received. I've updated the website and got new video testimonial, which is wonderful. Like really got a proper handle on actually what it is that I offer.
Nice.
Which is not a podcast editor. I'm a podcast producer, and there is a difference.
Yeah.
And I like for a long time, I didn't really think of there being a difference because when I was coming up in like 2016 doing this. Well, when I started doing it in 2008, and this is interesting. Like back in the day, there was no real delineation. Like, you know, I worked with my mates. The first show that I worked on that was not my own was a show called Back of the Brackets into Close Brackets Net. So back of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Back of the net being a sporting term. And it was a sports show, mainly football, but not exclusively. And it was sort of a comedy sport show.
Nice.
With two friends who I didn't know like massively well, but I was working with them on another project, and they wanted to do this show. And so I was producer Mark on it. And this was back end of 2008. We did some fun stuff. Like we had fun. We used to do little songs. Because, you know, there's lots of football chants, football terrace chants and stuff. There was a footballer in the time called Frank Kadrew. There was a song going around the time, which was to the tune of Run Around Sue, the old like 50s hit. And I sang that, and they did like backing vocals, and like we did all sorts of fun things.
Amazing.
Part of that job means putting a title in and writing what we would now call show notes, like just a description for the episode and putting it on, you know, WordPress as it was. Because what, again, the kids today don't realize is that podcast episodes are just blog posts. They are literally exactly the same. You just attach an audio file to them. So you do it in WordPress, you would write your blog post, and then you would attach the audio file to it, and then you have a podcast. There was no world in which I only do the audio editing, or I only do this specific aspect of the audio editing. Like someone else actually like writes down the timestamps of what the episode, you know, what needs to be edited. Like, no. And we would actually sit there and God, it's mad to think of that we used to do this, but we'd do it on a Monday night. I'd race home from work and we would sit there. We'd record an episode for maybe 2 hours and make all sorts of noise and faff about and probably have a couple of drinks, and then we'd edit it. So we'd record the whole thing, and then I'd sit and edit it, and we'd chop little bits out, and you know, and then by the time we were done, it would be, you know, I don't know, 11 midnight, something like that, and the thing would be done and ready to post the next morning, and you know, it'd go out on a Tuesday morning or whatever, and that, you know, I did all of that stuff, and so for me, whether you want to call it producer, if anything, sounded a bit aggrandizing.
Sure.
And so, like, podcast editor. And then 2016, I get my first actual paid gig to produce someone's podcast. And I'm like, I'm doing the same things. I'm doing the editing. It's now done remotely. I'm not in the same room as the person, but I'm taking his audio. Yeah. And I'm writing show notes and I'm doing the titles. And it's like, it was not valued all that well. I wasn't undercharging. I was charging what this guy could afford and he was my first client. So I charged what I could charge. Yeah. And when I talked about upping that rate, he abruptly left and didn't want to negotiate. It was just like, okay, see ya. Like, oh. And then shortly thereafter, the podcast stopped because anyway, it's fine. I did 100 odd episodes of that show. And I'm like, again, like producer, I don't know, feels a bit grand, feels a bit like BBC radio. Like, yeah, sure, they have a producer. I don't know, an editor, whatever. And now, because of the explosion of the world we're in, there is very much a delineation between the two. Yeah. And I hadn't really paid that much attention to it. And so now I can be a lot happier saying, like, it's not just about the deliverables, but it's how those things are delivered. Yeah. And the needs that I meet for that person. And like I was chatting to the patron saint of the show, Anya, about this earlier. She cornered me and ended up complimenting me to a ridiculous degree by talking about Erskine's relational needs or something like that. And like, there's like these eight or nine relational needs, and describing how my work meets these different needs that people have. And none of that is about, you know, delivering an MP3 file with ID 3 tags and a title and show notes. Mm-hmm. That's been really nice to lean into. The website is updated and I can be a bit more confident in my pricing because I'm like, like if an editor is all you see, then fine, you know, work with that person and that will go how it goes.
The 8 primary relational needs, according to Erstings, are security, validation, acceptance, having an impact, confirmation of personal experience, self-definition, initiative from the other, and shared experience.
There you go. And that initiative from the other is one of the big ones that I knew I already did, which is like, I don't make problems. Like, if I can solve a problem myself, I will do that. And like, you shouldn't have to remind me or tell me that, like,
or even know that the problem never existed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fine. And I don't need extra credit for that. But it's the sort of thing where it's like, you know, you don't necessarily know that that's what you're getting.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the hard part. It's like, I don't even want you to know, but also now you don't even know.
Yeah.
Which it's like,
but then, you know, that then gets down to the, like, what is the relationship that you've got? What is it built on? And so if someone, you know, so the podcast I was describing that sort of left my employ it was tricky because they soldiered on for a bit longer. And then some stuff happened that got complicated because it was with Podiant. It was hosted with Podiant, and then things got a bit tricky. But like they managed to move it. But then, you know, the podcast still sort of died. And this was 2021. Who knows? What I do know is that I trained someone up that was like, he'd found some Eastern European or Filipino, you know, service that would. And I remember sat with this person, showing them, here's what you can do in this particular app. Here's how you can, you know, make these edits, and there you go. And then like a week or so later, that person was gone. And there was a whole different person who was doing a whole different thing who I hadn't trained. And it was just like, yeah, whatever. And so the reason I bring all of that up is he probably felt like, and I think we've texted since, because there was a bit of not bad blood, but like fizzy blood, sort of not great blood, because of various things that happened with Podiant, some of which I will cop to, a lot of which I won't. That meant perhaps he didn't want to come back to work with me. But I think where I'm driving at is, if a person makes a decision not to work with you based on money, for example, they may very well quickly learn where that money was going.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. They will find that out.
For sure.
It's then on them to decide, okay, well, is the extra legwork I have to do to chase this person, make sure they've got all this bit, deal with every email that they send me when they're like, I haven't got this little piece of audio, or where's that artwork file, or like all of the stuff that they could sort themselves. You know, is your chasing of that person worth the extra $60 it is a month or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
If it isn't to that person, then like, in a sense, yes, you've lost the work, but it's also like, that's probably for the better, because ideally you want to work with people who
value
what you do. They don't have to intrinsically know every little point, you know. I mean, the whole thing is, you know, about editing is the work should be
right.
Editing is kind of a thankless job in a sense, because or a job that goes kind of without credit, because you don't notice good editing, but you definitely notice bad editing.
Yeah.
That's why I think sometimes clients can be very comfortable coming back with a load of things, because they don't realize, actually, you know what, I spent quite a while on this.
Yeah.
And making it seamless so that you don't realize, you know, and that could be restructuring, it could be papering over things, whatever it is.
My favorite clients have definitely been the ones that have tried the editing themselves and were frustrated and like have me do an episode, and they're like, oh, wow, this sounds way better, and I didn't have to do the work. Oh my gosh, that's golden.
That's what you want. It's kind of nice to be in that position to be able to more confidently say, like, podcast editing is 10 a penny. Like, you know, and I know it can be done on Fiverr, and it actually can be done to a pretty reasonable degree, because Descript, as one example, makes it very easy. A producer, a relationship is a different thing. And for those that value that, and not just from a squishy point of view, but value things like not having to listen back to a whole edit so that they can sit and write the titles, not being sure whether the titles and the show notes are actually good enough. Like, just not having to worry about that stuff is valuable, and not 10 a penny. And I think, like you talked about last week, of being not necessarily frustrated, but like, you know, wanting me to be able to connect with my worth. I think got a better sense of that now that I actually do step into the role of a producer rather than only an editor. And
That's
again,
awesome.
I'm using only rather than just, because editing is a perfectly good skill. It's just has been more commoditized. So that's that. And then for the last couple of days, I've been living in the world of Fogsworth, world of rabbits and cats and various creatures that inhabit the world of Fogsworth, and my second book.
Amazing. Do you have like a
nice.
concept and stuff? You have like I
do have
drive?
a sort of basic. So it's called the song Molly Whiskers and the Song of the Unicorn. And there's going to be a lot more lore in this one, and sort of unicorn lore. Yes, so there is kind of a basic idea, but I'm what they call a pantser, I think. You have, I can't remember what the other term is. Prepper? Something like that. Do you fly by the seat of your pants, or do you like have it all kind of sketched out?
Sure.
A bit more of a pantser, I think.
Oh yeah, pants. Yep.
Yeah, pants. Yep.
Do you know what they call an obese unicorn?
No, what do they call an obese unicorn?
I think the setup is funnier than the punchline.
Yep.
A rhinoceros.
Ah, sure. Yeah. I've heard that sort of in reverse of like, what is a unicorn but a fat rhinoceros or something?
Yeah.
I went to watch the new Alien that they have now. They have a new Alien out. I went to watch that on Saturday, and there are some dad jokes in that because like the android tells dad jokes.
Oh, hilarious.
And one of them actually did make me laugh. And you'll appreciate it, I think.
I'm excited.
Why did the blind miner fall down a well? Because he couldn't see that well. I like that one.
Nice. I like it.
I like that one.
I was going to like spelunky, like spelunky, spelun. I can't do it.
No. It feels like it should, but it won't fit. There was another one that was something along the lines of, I tried to read a book in zero gravity, but I couldn't put it down. It's something along those lines. I tried finishing a book. Yeah. I finished a book on zero gravity in half an hour. I couldn't put it down. Something like that. I love it.
That's great.
It's nice having a project. And this was the sort of thing with list envy that was always a danger is I've still got to square this circle in my mind, but like list envy as a work thing actually is not working that well for me. As sort of associating it with work, for one thing, because Google hasn't got the first fucking clue what my website is about, because top searches are for things like 80s sitcoms.
Yeah.
So if Google doesn't know what my website is for, it's not going to help me rise up the ranks.
I just last night was reading, so on your Make Marketing Suck Less Summit, there was somebody else that was doing SEO. They have a free guide, and I read that last night, and it was like pretty comprehensive, and some stuff that I was like kind of related to things that I'd kind of known about and heard from here and there, but it felt like a really good guide. So I would recommend taking a peruse through that, because they also had, like, I think it was linked at the bottom, was for specifically for blog posts SEO. And since as you just mentioned, like a podcast is nothing but a blog post, I'm wondering if applying those strategies to like for each, like one of the strategies was like for each post, you pick out one term or phrase or whatever that you want as the SEO thing for people to search for. People would end up searching for it, and it would populate this. And you use that term in every one of 7 different areas, including like the post title, the first paragraph, every 200 words of the description, and a few other places. And I was like, I do not do that with any of the podcasts that I do, or anything. So that seemed like really good advice.
Yeah. I I've always been, and this is just I think partly it's just the bias that I carry as an old school web developer. I cast an askance eye, I think, at some of that kind of advice, because you're writing for a machine. Don't write for a machine. Like, don't write for a machine. That's right. Like,
yeah,
if you're
of course
starting
it's
to advocate,
machine, but also it's the machine that puts you up at the top of the list. It's not a person that puts you at the top of the list. You need to write for a machine.
But it's a person that's going to read it.
Yeah, and that's the art, is to make it still enjoyable to read as a person, but formatted so that the machine can read it.
Yeah,
you got to write for both parts. Both need their
for
their
me,
back rub.
and I don't disagree at all. For me, that comes in having a well-structured document more than it does. Like, for example, not telling your CMS that you want the title text to be big, and this is less of a problem now because I think content management systems got a lot better. But it used to be that we would say everything is a P tag, everything's a paragraph, and then we're just going to crank up the font size or use bold to make that the heading. And that's semantically, visually, we can see, because there's a visual hierarchy there, but semantically it means nothing. And so that's why we use H1, H2, H3 tags to create headings and stuff like that. And to me, it's short sentences, readability, those kinds of things for me are more valuable. But then again, I don't have SEO success. So, what do I know? But yeah, I carry a cynicism from years on the web.
I was coached on this kind of SEO stuff a little bit when I started my first Rockstar website. And that Rockstar website was at the top of search results. And then I changed a whole bunch of shit. Yeah. And I didn't go back and really hone all the SEO stuff. And it dropped in the rankings. And so now I'm relearning all these things. And I expect.
But you're also now at a huge disadvantage. Sure. Because it's got so much more complicated, so much stuff. It's much more opaque than it was. I mean, when did you make your first website for Rockstar?
2009 and 10.
Yeah. I think even in that era, like, it was. By the way, this is not discounting what you did. I'm saying, like, what you did worked then, but like what got you there won't get you, here, because it's just got so much more complicated. Because I remember, like, similar kind of times building websites for people, like, the whole thing, was like such and such service in whatever location, right?
Yeah.
And wedding DJ in Birmingham, driving instructor in South Birmingham, and doing that. And then I remember, like, building the websites, waiting a few weeks, couple of months, and then doing the Google searches and finding them and going, yes, it works. And it used to just, you build the website and you make it fast and you make it work and you keep it updated, and that was enough. It's not enough anymore. Let's also not forget the fact that everyone's search results are different because they are tailored to your personal graph. Yeah. So it's like, it's really hard. I was chatting with some people this morning about this whole thing, and how I think some companies, like these big content farms, can really make that stuff up in bulk, because they can just, even before the days of AI, they would just pay a bunch of people with minimal English language experience, but who could work at a very, minimal wage, to crank out pages so that when you Googled, when is the next series of This Is Us coming on, you would get a 2,000 word essay about all the different characters and what the relationship was like, and how the press thought of the reception of the last season, and what the network's planning for its summer, like, and somewhere in there buried would be the answer that you wanted. And like, content farms can shit that stuff out. You and I were fighting against, like, a lot of that stuff and a lot of Yelp, because, like, wouldn't it be better if rather than Yelp result come up, your website came up? That used to be, we used to think that was possible, and I think it used to be possible. It's still possible within podcasting, but that might not be forever. Like, if you have a decent website for your podcast and you Google the name of your show, your website should be the first thing that comes up, not the Spotify page, not the Apple Podcasts page. And it's the same thing as Yelp. Ideally, you want your thing to be above Yelp, but the days of that seem way in the past.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also feel like there are still tools and lessons to be learned and used. And yeah, the landscape is harder now, but still got to try.
Oh, God, yeah.
Still got to do it.
Oh, yeah. I did an SEO audit yesterday on my website because I'm like, you can't hurt. It can only, it's not going to damage anything as long as I'm not doing anything, nefarious. Yeah. I went through, speaking of like podcast content, because this is one of the things like people have talked about using the transcript as a way of helping your SEO. And then other people are like, actually, it doesn't help because your transcript doesn't read like how we like to read text. It reads like how we speak, which is different from how we like to read words.
Yeah, for sure.
And so Google tends not to love it.
What if you took a podcast transcript, took it to ChatGPT, and said, rewrite this in a readable format instead of a spoken...
You mean what I did 4 times yesterday?
Yeah. That exactly...
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're a step ahead of me. Or 4 steps, I guess.
Makes very long blog posts, and also like I edited the shit out of it afterwards.
Sure.
The tricky thing that you have with a lot of the GPT stuff is I was using Notion's improve writing prompt and what that will usually do is tighten things up a little bit. It fucks around. It spells everything wrong because it's American. So it just puts Z's everywhere. Or Z's. I had to get that barb in. But it doesn't actually change like what I said. It doesn't make me sound like a perky millennial or a perky teen. It doesn't, hey guys, it's not that kind of writing. Whereas like ChatGPT can kind of, sometimes you can just be like, correct the grammar. And then suddenly it's like change the whole tone because it's writing to this bland thing. So I ended up doing a lot of that at a human level myself. But yeah, like I legit took 4 episodes of my podcast from last year that is about podcasting and just wrote them as big ass blog posts.
Nice.
We will see if that does anything. If there's there's any use to that. But like I've got to educate Google that my website is for people who want to make podcasts, not for people who want to celebrate 80s sitcoms.
Yeah. I'd be curious if you do read over that SEO guide, if you learn things that are like either different from what you normally see or change what your
I hope I do, and I'm sure I will, because
that'd be interesting.
I've met with people who I know to not be snake oil salespeople. I know that they're not talking shit.
This person really doesn't seem to be at all.
Yeah,
like the sell is really mild. It's like, and if you want one-on-one stuff, let me know. But otherwise, here's all the information.
Oh, I don't even mean like that kind of pushy sales tactic. I just mean again, like back in the day, and this is my bias coming from a very tech background and whatever, and like the Skunk Works tech team within a marketing company that were kind of shoved away in a man-smelling closet, and occasionally they would open the door and show us to clients and say, these are the tech people. This is almost verbatim, like, these are the tech wizards. We don't really know what they do. Close the door, carry on. Like, that was my life for a few years.
Yeah, for sure.
You'd meet these like SEO people, and they were always a bit slick.
Oh, yeah.
And a bit like, hey, so it's kind of about, it's really, you really want to maximize the alt tags. And then it's just like, It just, it all just felt a little bit greasy.
Yeah, I get that completely.
That's not, endemic. It's not representative of everyone.
Can we check back in on something else we've been talking about?
Oh, please.
You had mentioned the feelings of depression that you were battling. And I I don't have... I have such a reputation now. Oh my gosh. No, this is not. That's actually more about
what
me.
What am I doing wrong?
Nothing, dude. You're great. You're great. You're perfect. Although it did cross my mind that you said you were analyzing how much you were trying to escape being present with that pain. And then you also talked about how you're starting a new Molly Whiskers book. That didn't escape me. But this is what I wanted to check back in about.
Yeah.
What I just wanted to relate a little bit. I've been feeling kind of weighed down by my current situation. The past year has been really tough for me, and the foreseeable future, like the medium term foreseeable future, like the next couple years, I think are going to be fucking great. The next 4 months, I think, are going to be fucking great. But kind of in a little in between zone, between like 5 months and 12 months, is pretty like kind of murky. I don't really know how it's going to work yet. Like making money and feeling secure and a few other things, health stuff. And so I kind of have that in the back of my head a lot, and I'm kind of weighed down by it. And over the past couple weeks, it's been really bringing me down. I've been feeling lethargic and out of my head and just kind of not great. But yeah, 2 days ago I was working, and I was just I could barely work at all. I got maybe 2 hours of work in the whole day as I was trying to work the whole day. And then the next day I got more work done, but it was still kind of hard. And I started taking some notes and trying to figure out like what it is I need to do to be able to get through what I'm going through. I just wanted to read to you what I wrote to myself and see what you think. Food is not the way out of this pain. TV is not the way out of this pain. Video games are not the way out of this pain. Work isn't the way out of this pain. Weed isn't the way out of this pain. Sex isn't the way out of this pain. Music isn't the way out of this pain. Rest is the way through this pain. Presence is the way through this pain.
You're a wise motherfucker. And
thank you, sir.
You echo, I think, my thoughts entirely. I know intrinsically it needs to be about rest.
Yeah.
And for me, in a sense, like I've put List Envy on pause just for a bit so that I can just have a moment to stop, to address the Molly Whiskers elephant in the room. Yes, it is. I wouldn't say escape. It's actually, what's nice is it's a side project to look forward to, and with no expectation that it is going to save me from my situation.
Yeah.
Whereas every other idea has been, this is my way out.
Yep. Yeah, no, I see that and I feel that. And no, what's funny is actually, I didn't read to you the whole thing that I wrote. I skipped one. After I said music is not the way out of this pain, I just wrote writing ? And I just kind of moved on from that one.
Undecided.
Yeah, it was a bit undecided.
Yeah,
because I definitely process a lot through writing, even if it's not related to the thing.
Yes,
but it's like getting stuff out of your brain, and it's not that exertion. Exertion heavy or whatever. I kind of co-sign the idea of writing.
Yeah. And so on the rest thing, I think that's something that I've been intrinsically aware of and noticing because rest for me is difficult.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Because it feels like inaction, and inaction is not permissible. It feels like a wresting of control, giving up control, which also it cannot be countenanced. One must tightly grip onto everything lest it go awry. And
it sounds like I feel like you just said all of the tools that you need all of the paths that you need to do are the things that you just said that you couldn't allow yourself to do.
Yeah, absolutely. An idea that I come back to every so often, and it's just proof of how brilliant a writer Douglas Adams was when he described a ship that the heroes are stealing, and the ship is fighting them every step of the way. They stop fiddling with the controls, and suddenly the ship settles down. And one of them says, "Did you make sense of the controls?" And the other one says, "No, we just stopped fiddling with them. Clearly, this ship has a better idea of where it wants to go than we do."
Mm-hmm.
And that,
Yep.
If you stop, and there is actually, I think it's one of those stories that's might be in a couple of books, but it's certainly, I think, in Michael Neal's one that goes into the three principle. There is the story of a pilot whose plane is going down, and he radios control, and he's saying, like, I'm gripping the yoke, and it's like I'm pulling it down, but it's not working. And the guy at control is like, "Take your hands off the yoke." "I can't take my hands off the yoke because the plane is crashing." "Take your hands off the yoke." And it's like, yeah, he goes back and forth, and finally he takes his hands off the yoke, and then the system rights itself because it knows what it's doing. The system's panicking because it's being fought every step of the way by someone who thinks it knows what's.
Yeah.
And, how true that story is, whatever. But like, it's a good illustration, I think, of that idea.
Yeah.
But
yeah, easier said than done.
Thank you. Exactly. And so I think for me, working on Molly Whiskers is there's some just very restful elements of that, like cycling to my local arts centre with my laptop and sitting in the cafe there and tippity tapping it away for a few hours. Like, that's lovely.
Yeah.
But there's also another part, which is exercising that bit that still needs to make something, that still needs to create, that still needs to control, because like, this is my world, I get to shape it. And so it kind of does a good duty that way.
With the thought of rest, I realized on Wednesday so I've been doing weightlifting for about 6 months, twice a week. And I came to the unwanted decision that I need to give that up for the foreseeable future. I really like how it is shaping my body. I really like the feeling of bone density strengthening in my body. I like seeing the progress from week to week and the growth. And I feel I'm fighting these feelings of both like a sunk cost feeling of like, I've gotten this far, I don't want to lose the progress. I don't want to, like, because you have to maintain it. It doesn't just stay.
Yeah.
And the feelings of backtracking and going backward and receding into feeling like a lesser version of myself than I am currently. And I know, like, it's not true, but that's still the feelings. But I realize, like, I'm getting a lot of messages from the universe lately that I haven't done enough resting. I haven't really finished the resting that I need to do in order to heal the things that I've been going through and the health issues, the way that I have just demolished my body. It surprised me for many years, like, looking back at how I treated my body from the years of like 10 to 24.
I mean, you were weighed down by that bloody wallet chain,
Yeah, I was dragging that along, and
you got
like,
slanted ass.
My primary diet, like my primary food source, was sugar. Like, I had a big bag of bulk candy in either cargo pocket. I'd have freaking a 64-ounce soda from 7-Eleven, or a Slurpee, or I would have meals like maybe once a day, like an actual meal. But oftentimes they were freaking like TV dinners, like frozen dinners that I just microwaved. And then I'd go get an ice cream sandwich, or like a big box of them in the freezer. My dad would always get them. And it's like, I grew up on such shit. And I didn't exercise. I didn't do anything for my body. It's amazing that it's even here. But now I'm dealing with all the repercussions of it trying to survive all of that trauma, not just the food, not just the neglect, not just the sedentary lifestyle and other things, but like all of it together. And yeah, and I'm hearing from the experts who I trust, who have helped me get this far, because Margaret was a part of Unique's group coaching program, and it was like a 12-week program, and there's like these like Zoom calls where they all got together and were answering questions and doing a bunch of stuff. And Karen Hurd was on one of the episodes, and there was a Q&A with her, and it was great. And from that and a few other things I've been looking up, and I'm just hearing over and over again, rest is the way, because the body just needs to not be pushing adrenaline, not be overtaxing the adrenal glands from stress, from work, from working out, from so many different aspects, from being triggered by foods. It needs to be able to have downtime, and not just a little bit of downtime, but like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months of downtime. And when I've done that before, I've done that a couple times before, and it's always been super beneficial. It's incredibly hard to not do stuff. I think especially for us nines, like the way we become a 9 because of conditioning from our early childhood, and that conditioning showed us that doing things was important, and how we were valuable, how we got love, how we find ourselves in this world. Part of the work to become an evolved 9 is to get past that, to like notice and believe that our value isn't tied in what we do.
Yes, we are more than the product of our efforts or of our labors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sent you something recently that Margaret sent me that I thought was just so great. It was this quote, like Twitter quote or whatever. Western cultures believe we must be alive for a purpose, to work, to make money. Some indigenous cultures believe we're alive just as nature is alive, to be here, to be beautiful and strange. We don't need to achieve anything to be valid in our humanness. I thought that was just so, that hit me at just the right time. I was like, oh man, I really need to hear that right now. Cause like, I don't like this culture of doing, like, even though I'm all in it, like I want to do it. I love doing the things, but also I can feel how oppressive it is.
Yeah. So is it about the place from which that doing comes? Because, if I think about locking myself away in a Airbnb in the countryside in summer of 2019, in fact, about this time 5 years ago, to write the second half of Molly Whiskers, that is just action and doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it came from the place of, I just authentically want to make this because it would be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
There comes a time for me when certain projects begin to feel a little bit more like obligations, or like that sense of fun. Like, I was thinking about this today. I was thinking about Bitrate, and I was thinking about, which was a podcast that you and I used to do, and I was thinking about Thread, which was a show that I used to do with John Hickman, and thinking about this show. And I miss that, I'm sad that those two shows ended, and I'm very glad that this one is continuing. And I've got, I will always want to turn up and do this, because I wouldn't, it's just why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But what I'm thinking about now is, so thinking about the place from which you do those things, but also I'm thinking about that you sort of mentioned this culture of productivity. And I'm now thinking about like some of the shows that I listen to and have made, and sometimes have fought against my own making of them, which is about how can we be more efficient? How can we do more? How can we make more?
Mm-hmm.
And I caught myself in a cycle yesterday saying to one of my friends, how would you feel about, in the same vein as this, doing a podcast about running a small business, a creative business, when you have some sort of neurodivergence, expecting this person to need to be convinced. And they were like, yeah, cool.
Nice.
And thinking like that would be good to do, but also like, careful, don't do the thing that you're doing, because like if you do it, but do it for the right reasons. Do it because you think there's value in it, not because it's bright and shiny. But I'm also thinking along those lines of...
That sounds like that could be one of a topic for one of the episodes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very, very much. And I want the name to like hint at something like that. Like,
yeah,
you know, this is not what I should be doing or something, you know.
Yeah.
This is not a good activity. Find a better activity. Sorry, everything leads to Brian Regan. No, where I was going with that is I am also drawn to the idea of, as the kids say, holding space for the deliberate not doing. And what would it be like to talk about not doing in your business, or to talk about rest in your business? Maybe that's a limited series. Maybe that, you know, because to perpetually talk about that might be tricky. I don't know. Maybe it isn't. Maybe, you know, maybe there's always ways to talk about finding rest, but it would be really interesting amidst, and maybe there's something like this already exists, but amidst all the stuff in every sector of business, there is a YouTube or a podcast or a blog or a newsletter or various of those things that are all about how you do more, how AI can help you do more, how you can use these 3 hacks, how this self-help book will help you achieve more.
Hustle culture is definitely way, way worse for that. But I think even the anti-hustle people are still about productivity. Yeah. What about not activity? Yeah, you know, what about that negative space? What about active rest? Rest as resistance, rest as like an activity, as restorative, as something that is a chosen, like, no, it's not that I'm not doing something, I am resting. Yeah. It's the line from Hamilton, something about I'm not falling behind, I'm lying in wait, or something like that. It's, you know, I'm willing to wait for it. It's like all of that as a conscious decision, a conscious choice. You're making a conscious choice to take the advice of people that you trust, to listen to perhaps what your body wants and needs, and to say, I am actively resting. And while that is happening, I am in repair and I am being restored. My cup is being refilled. That is, that's an act. Like, we don't just like close our eyes and go to sleep every day for around 8 hours for a third of our life for no reason. Like,
well, that's what the
getting incredibly vulnerable
ads tell me.
Yeah,
I couldn't sleep properly last night, and the night before, like my sleep's knackered. Ironically, my sleep is all messed up. Like. So yeah, the rest is different. It's not just sleep, and it might not be about doing nothing, but it's about a break from trying, a break from that grind, that push. Yeah. I think if you love that, and there are some people who do and who thrive on that, then do it. And if you can keep, like, I marvel at, like, one of my clients, I don't think they've missed, they do like the odd, like, repeat, we'll do some repeat episodes, but I don't think their podcast has missed a week pretty much since its inception in 2019. I think about this and it bothers me. Of course it does. Of, like, you have all the unkind questions of, like, why can't I stick to anything? Yada, yada, yada.
Sure.
And, there's some real talk to be had there, maybe, but I'm not the same person as that person.
Yeah.
Maybe that person thrives in a particular way, in that kind of, not grind necessarily, but, like, they see the bricks that they're stacking. And for me, I just see the wall. I don't know. It just doesn't compute in the same way to me.
Yeah.
I'm someone who needs to see results fairly constantly. I need to know that what I'm doing is having an effect. And, like, if that's one of my needs, if that's a need, like, but what's interesting, and I was chatting to other patron saint of the podcast, Anna, about this earlier. What's an interesting discipline for me with Molly Whiskers is I'll go away, write 36,000 words. I might share a couple of hundred of them with people here and there, but it's because I'm like, this bit made me laugh, or I thought it was fun, or I just want you to get a sense of it, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm writing through, 36,000 words in secret,
Yeah.
And then the whole thing is out and you can come and look at it, which is an entirely different muscle from put a thing out this week. Has it moved the needle? Have people looked at it? Am I getting that validation?
Right.
And for whatever reason, I'm fine with writing 36,000 words and not seeking validation, except on those moments where maybe I'd want to share something. I don't know. I find that like a weird little dichotomy.
Yeah.
And where there's a sort of a healthy outlet maybe or a balance somewhere between the two.
Yeah. Thinking about what's coming up soon for you, what are you not going to do this week?
This week? Ooh, that's a great question. I am not going to tinker with my website, but then I enjoy that. That's not really an active. I think part of the reason, like, the back end of this week has been a bit weird is that I was supposed to deliver a talk this week that was supposed to be the marker point of, like, the next stage in my career is not the right word, but, like, kind of the next stage of the business. Was supposed to be this model of go off and find as many different places you can give talks to and give those talks, and those people find value in the talks, useful information, and then they want to work with you, and that's the model.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of prep and wrote what I hoped to be a really good talk, and then it was cancelled or postponed indefinitely. Postponed with no rescheduled date 15 minutes before it was due to be,
oh shit,
done. I was kind of, not that, like, I really realistically thought that, like, everything would change and suddenly I'd be deluged with work, but, like, it would be the start of a new thing.
Yeah.
And I haven't been allowed that start. And so I still feel like I need to find work, but maybe I don't know. What would happen if I didn't? I am experimenting a little bit more with that. Like, today I've really done very little. I sat watching Dropout.
Yeah.
Come September, when I go away to my little hippie retreat, I'm going to have pretty much a whole week, hopefully, where I'm going to have no delivery. Like, there are talks and there are activities to do at this thing. And a lot of me is wondering, I know I've paid a lot of money to go there, but, like, I might just sit in the sauna and, or take a walk or various other things like that than feel like I need to be receiving. To finally answer your question, I think what I might do is take a rest from the shoulds.
Yes.
Try that for a bit.
Yes.
See what happens then. How about you?
I love that. weightlifting. What I'm focusing on right now is the way my life is structured for the next 3 to 5 months is. I know that Merlin Mann would say this is impossible, but I have two main priorities, and their hierarchy. Well, actually, I don't know which one's higher. Shit. But I'm working on the house remodel because I want to get to the house to be in a place that we can do more with it, not just in terms of living in it, which will be great. It's going to be wonderful to live in the remodel because it's going to be so good, dude. But, then we could possibly have a roommate. We could rent out the whole place. We could Airbnb the place. We could sell the place. Right now, we can't do any of those things. It's just not, and it's such a project, so half finished that there's just nothing that we can do at the moment. I have to finish. I have to add a bathroom. I have to finish these other things. I've been wanting to do this for so long. Right now, with this weird dry spell of calls, it just kind of feels like the universe is finally saying, like, "Hey, here's your opportunity. We're not gonna be sending people your way. So you got to do what you said you've been wanting to do. Now's the time.
Bluff called, motherfucker.
Yeah, like if I keep filling my time with all of these other projects, when will I ever do this one project I really want to do? I've been dreaming about this for 5 years. It's time to finally put the work into it. And so that's kind of priority number 1. And priority number 2 is rest. The biggest thing is just, I will put my energy and effort into rebuilding the house, and then everything else needs to take a backseat to my body just meditating, just sitting in the sauna, just doing yoga, just sleeping more, just resting as much as possible. Don't veg out on TV. Don't occupy yourself with video games. And just really just try to exist.
Feel like rest.
There are forms of rest, but like fun isn't rest. Like it can be restful. But it's not like you're still doing an activity. You're still engaging. You're bringing up emotions. Your body is doing stuff. It's an active rest. And I want a passive rest. I want deep, nourishing rest where my body can fully relax, fully disconnect, not need to be thinking about things or doing things internally. Like we think about like not moving our body. Well, inside our body is still very active and moving and stuff. And that's where my mantra comes in of food and TV and video games and work and weed and sex and music are not the way out of this pain. I have to be present to it, and I have to really rest. And as always, correct me if I'm resting. You get what I was trying to. No, it's.